Now let's turn our attention to the White family. Jessie Belle White was born in Hadley on April 14, 1880. She was the second child of Alexander and Annie Marie Flansburg White. One brother, William Nahum, was older than her. Jessie's three sisters were Bertha, Martha, or known as Mattie, and Anna. A brother, Alexander, came between Mattie and Anna. In Flossie's notes, it reads, Jessie said that she always wanted to be a boy. Of course, her only playmate for several years was her brother, Will White. Until she was 11 years old, she and Will had to walk about 4 miles each way when they attended school. She used to get very tired. Uncle Will would take a forked stick and help by pushing her up the hill. She always enjoyed active games more than playing with dolls. Her son Wilbur says of her education, Mother faithfully finished the 8th grade. She appears to have liked school and expressed her desire to be a teacher, but there was little opportunity, especially when 3 of the 4 parents were already dead before such decisions were possible. Flossie tells us about her mother's industriousness. Quote, Mother worked in the garden, did a great deal of cooking, canning, and sewing. In season, she would walk miles to pick berries. Sometimes we picked blackberries to sell. One of her favorite places for berrying was the Pulver place and her birthplace farther up the road. I can still remember the luscious field strawberries we picked on the Pulver place. Later in the season, we found blueberries in abundance. At the same time, the shade trees would yield berries that we ate since they would not make good pies. In August, we would return to pick blackberries. Sometimes Mother would do the milking. She made butter enough for the family and some extra that she took to the store and traded for groceries. She had the reputation of being a good butter maker and a great cook. She usually had 2 jars of homemade cookies waiting for us. One she called molasses cookies, the other sugar. She made most of her own garments as well as her children's clothes. Occasionally, someone would hire her to make a dress for a special occasion. She gave of herself unstintingly beyond the call of duty. Her life and work remind me of the woman described in Proverbs 31. End quote. Wilbur said of his mother, Jessie had a happier childhood with more parental helps. She took the lead in many aspects of parenting and leadership. Though she was very aware of professional limitations, she had a lot of practical wisdom that made her a good counselor and disciplinarian. She saved a lot with her abilities as cook and homemaker and seamstress. She never lost her interest in people and her desire to be a teacher, though she never had the opportunity for professional training. Her spiritual example and discipline were more effective and stable than most. Flossie recalls of her mother, Jessie was extremely conscientious and religious. She made it a practice to read her children Bible stories and encourage the memorization of favorite Bible verses. Wilbur continues to tell of his mother's characteristics. Mom was well-balanced in temperament. She was concerned about the problems of others and tried hard to help, but she mostly kept her balance and was kind and understanding. Her friends and relatives often sought her out for advice.
Well, your mom also had some health problems as a young adult, but she lived to a rather old age, so she conquered her health problems. What was that all about?
I think that was all about me. I was born on the 6th of January, and she she had labor pains during the night, and Dad had to get up and hitch up the horse and drive probably 7 or 8 miles to the doctor's to get the doctor up. And the doctor got up, and he had to wait for his wife to get up and make him some hot biscuits before he'd start out. And and all the time, Mother was having a hard time. And before the doctor finally came, I guess I came, and her problem started right there. I don't know the particulars, I don't know just what the problem was, but it was caused by childbirth. And I don't know if she ever did get over it. That is, she had other children. Wilbur and your father were born afterward. But she always had problems with that. And I think that must be the health problems that you referred to.
Yes.
Jessie died in Corinth, January 28, 1958. Although she had a colostomy in her 60s, the cause of death was a stroke. For some time, her vision had been poor because of glaucoma. There are 10 generations of Whites from Jessie to Nicholas, who was the immigrant to North America. White is an ancient line and can be traced extensively throughout England. Although we're not sure of the English origin of Nicholas, we know that he is the first of our line to reach North American shores. He settled in Taunton in Massachusetts Bay Colony around 1655 after first having settled in Dorchester, where he was admitted as a freeman in 1648. Nicholas was part owner of the Taunton Iron Works. His son John resided in that part of Taunton which became Reiew in 1731. He was a surveyor, a clerk of the military company, one of the selectmen of Taunton, and a large owner of real estate. In 1704, he represented Taunton on a committee to settle the boundary line between Dorchester on the one side and Taunton and Bridgewater on the other. John's son, Josiah, was a representative from Norton to the Massachusetts General Court from 1749 to 1750. The first of 3 Nahims was born in 1772. Nahim Jr., born in 1797, was the first White in Athol or Stony Creek as it is now known. Alexander White was Jessie's father. Not much is known about him. His daughter Jessie always portrayed him as a fun-loving individual. Chip Dayton tells a story about Alexander being attacked as he rode his wagon home on a path through the forest.
I've heard a story of how your, let's see, it would be your grandfather Alexander White died. Can you recollect that story?
I never saw my grandfather White, and I never knew too much about him. I still don't know how he died. I have heard about it a couple of different times that he was attacked, when he was going along the road. He lived back probably 2 miles or 2.5 miles off the main road. And
Now, where would that have been?
you know where Fred Abbott lives?
Sure.
Well, and there's a little creek down just below his house, and there's a wood road that goes along that creek.
Now, we're not talking about up past the cemetery, right? We're talking in a different direction.
Well, it's in that general direction, but sort of parallel with that
Okay.
road that goes up to the cemetery.
Okay.
It was back, they lived back in there about 2 miles, 2.5 miles. And both of these times that he was attacked, it was pitch dark. One time somebody threw a rock, I guess hit him in the back. And
Would these have been like burglar, or, after his money, or?
no, I don't know why it was. It looks to me more as though it was some kind of a grudge he had against him. But somebody threw that rock at him, and he threw the rock back in the general direction where it came from. And that was all there was to that. And the other time, somebody climbed up on the back of his wagon and stabbed him several times in the back. And that may have, he may have died from that.
The events surrounding Alexander's death are told by Paul Dayton. He relates that one evening Alexander didn't come in from the field when the dinner bell was rung. The family went out to the field to see what the matter was. They found him dead in his garden. He had been tilling the soil with his horse and plow. The horse was still standing at the spot where his master had fallen. Here's a photograph of Alexander's gravestone, located in the Blackwood Cemetery on Hadley Hill. Alexander married a Dutch woman, Anna Marie Elma Flansburg. Anna's genealogy can be traced back to Holland through Jan Jensen van Flansburg. Anna was a 6th-generation American. Anna was the daughter of William and Rosina Flansburg. Rosina's maiden name was Johnson. Anna was born April 3, 1855, in Chester, New York. She was the daughter of a Wesleyan minister, and she lived in several different towns before settling in Hadley. She was a widow on 3 different occasions. She died July 26, 1935. Flossie Denton said of her, "Grandma had a zest for life. She loved to fish and work in her garden. She was a good housekeeper and an excellent cook. She had lovely skin. She was affectionate and deeply religious. She used to say that the Bible said that the Jews would be going back to Jerusalem. I lived to see Grandma's prediction come true." Her gravestone is next to her first husband, Alexander, in the Blackwood Cemetery on Hadley Hill. Jessie's maternal grandfather was the Reverend William Flansburg. Shortly after his first wife died when he was about 40 years old, William had a born-again Christian experience. He was a farmer, but he felt the call to the ministry. After a brief pastorate in the Free Will Baptist Church, he became a Wesleyan minister in 1853. He started with a parish in Johnsburg, then pastored at the Warrensburg, New York. From 1858 to 1859, he was stationed at Brandon and Goshen, Vermont. In 1859 and 60, he was stationed at Hadley, New York. In 1861, he was stationed at Stony Creek, and in 1862 and 63 at Warrensburg and Hadley. In 1864, he served Warrensburg and Horicon. He spent the latter part of his life as a farmer and preached as opportunities came. Wilbur Jr. recalls seeing a letter from Abraham Lincoln to Reverend Flansburg, and it was about the abolition of slavery. It said, quote, "You keep preaching abolition from the pulpit, and I'll preach it from the White House," unquote. William's father, Matthias, or Matthew, was a Revolutionary War soldier. He also had 3 brothers that fought in the Revolution. He married Maria Clute, and they are buried in the West Day Cemetery. Next in the White lineage is the marriage of Nahum White to Harriet Fraser. On Harriet's death certificate, it states that she was born in North Adams, Massachusetts, but I haven't been able to find any records of the Frasers there. Her father was Freegrace Fraser. His gravestone can be found in the Schofield Cemetery in Stony Creek, New York. Freegrace was married in Gill, Massachusetts. Harriet died of senile dementia, a disease we now know as Alzheimer's. Nahum Jr. married into the Goodnow family of Stony Creek. Nahum moved to Stony Creek in 1819 from Massachusetts, according to the 1855 New York Census. We have already covered the Goodnows, since Wilbur's mother was Nancy Goodnow. Nahum Sr. married into the Goodnow family in Rowe, Massachusetts, May 30th, 1795. They had twins, Nahum and Naaman. Naaman died shortly after being born. Nothing is known of Abigail, but it stands to reason that she was somehow connected to the Goodnow family of her son. Jonathan Jr. lived in Attlesboro, Massachusetts, and married Sarah Shepherdson. The Shepherdsons settled in Bristol County, Massachusetts. They were from England, and Daniel was a blacksmith. Jonathan Sr. married Hannah Jackson, November 8, 1743, in Norton, Bristol County, Massachusetts. Nothing is known about her family or origins. Josiah married Margaret Leonard, November 12, 1712, in Towton, Bristol County, Massachusetts. Josiah was a representative from Norton to the Massachusetts General Court in 1749 and 1750. Margaret Leonard was a 4th-generation American. She was born at the end of the 17th century. The Leonards were from Pontypool County, Monmouth, Wales. This locality was known for its ironworks. We call them iron forges. The Leonards were mortgaged to the hilt at their ironworks plant in England and abandoned it for a new irons work at Towton, Massachusetts. They established or financially backed ironworks at Lynn, Braintree, Raleigh Village, Towton, and Canton, New Jersey, which led to the observation that, quote, "Where you can find ironworks, there you will find a Leonard," unquote. The Leonards were active in King Philip's War, and for a considerable time they kept the head of King Philip in the cellar of their home in Towton. It is said that the Leonards are of the family Leonard, Lennard, and are descended from 2 lines from King Edward III of England. I have not traced this ancestry.